Hello everyone and Udvos Letel from a dark, wet and overcast Hungaroring. Finally, after threatening in Suzuka and Monza, we get a wet race. Or at least a race with changing conditions where all the excitement and drama seem to lie. So what's Si Shakedown, I hear you ask? Well, please don't sue me Sky Sports, but it's my take on Sky F1's notebook with the legend that is Ted Kravitz. A short feature where we wander around pit lane and the paddock whilst reflecting on the race and how the teams and drivers have performed, as well as bringing any other gems of information if there's any to be had. I'm doing this over the replay of the qualifying session, as you can see. The rain is falling, just a light drizzle really, and spoiler alert, it will stay that way throughout the session. But dry tyres will be optimal after about 7 minutes. The 34 cars, which is a great turnout for round 5 by the way, will prove enough to carve somewhat of a dry line through the puddles, so it'll make for an interesting end of session with advantage to whoever crosses the start line in time last. So let's begin, shall we? I've donned my Superman cape that I've salvaged from Damien's car lost deep in the ether to make travelling around a bit faster, as I wanted to first show you the entrance gate to the Hungaroring. So as we pass the useless racers car of Rob Taplin, make our way out of the paddock, down the service road. This is the exit out of the circuit, I believe. Takes us under the exit of turn 1, and we arrive at the main gate for the circuit. This is where all the tons of freights arrived a couple of weeks ago after its journey around the world from Mount Panorama, and not an ounce of carbon emitted in the process. Sim racing, it's the future, don't you know? Speaking of carbon emissions, behind us we have a convenient petrol station for the real people to fill up their wagons, or maybe pick up an after-hours snack from the vending machine. And if we look over here, we even have the prices for our petrol. 420 odd florins. Florins, is that right? No, it's florin, isn't it? Florin. No, foreign. Florin is an old English coin. Yes, it's a foreign in Hungary. So, 420 forins. I presume that's for a litre. I suspect the 470 is a diesel price, but I've no idea as to what that translates to in euros or the good old British pound. So, that's how you get into the complex. The lorries anyhow. There's probably more pedestrian entrances dotted around, or if you're a young teenager you probably know where there's a gap in the fence to jump through. There's one more thing that I wanted to show you that Kunos has detailed, which is the Aquarena water park. You may have seen it on the broadcast beyond turn 5, or even noticed a colourful structure when lapping and wondered what it was, and here it is. Water slides and pools aplenty for your entertainment. Maybe you can even find a nice sun lounger to enjoy the race from, providing, that is of course, we can beat our German friends to them. Whilst we're at this end of the circuit, if you watch the stream or keep up with the chat in RRL Discord, you might have heard that our own Robert Horvath has been a marshal here on occasions. Yes, in real life, folks. And his favourite post was at the exit of turn 4. Now, I don't know if these posts are true to life, and I can't make up my mind whether it's at post 12 or this post 13, which is the exit of turn 4. But it's somewhere in this vicinity that our local boy has given his time for the sake of others' enjoyment. So, good job, Robert. Maybe we can teach these ACC marshals how to wave their flags a bit better after a trigger. So, with a thrust of the fist skywards, let's make our way back to pit lane and get on with the recap of the teams and drivers. We'll begin with the useless racers, as they're the top point scorers of the meeting with 139 points, their best points haul yet. And yes, the best points haul yet, and you get the feeling they've now settled into the Masters and are fast becoming a force to be reckoned with. We'll start with Rob, who's kindly waited for us. Qualified 8th and finished P6 to continue his impressive run of results since Valencia, including 2 podiums whilst cruelly being denied a 3rd at Suzuka. He said he enjoyed the changing conditions and seemed not to suffer significant wear on the wets as reported by others. It also came to light that he was operating his accelerator pedal with around a 50% zone due to some malfunction that the team hoped to have sorted by Spa. Up to 4th in the Drivers' Championship and turning a few heads down pit lane. Yes, but who needs Rob Taplin when you have Paul Heron in your team? A remarkable drive to P4 after starting P14, which must have felt so satisfying after his indifferent start to the campaign. Okay, he had a P10 at Suzuka, which is no mean feat, but this result at Hungary is why I feel he's on the shortlist for driver of the day. Paul was also worth saying that the wear was light on his wet tyres, so the team must have had a nicely balanced car for the wet conditions. Not often that Rob gets one over his teammates, but today you can enjoy the pat on the back, buddy. Oh, and by the way, that's useless racers up to P3 in the team's championship. Take note. Next up we have Intense Racing, who will most likely still be partying, not least because of Cliff taking the win, but also because the weekend results saw the Belgian outfit take the top spot in the team's championship. It was a super drive by Cliff after qualifying 6th, who came alive when the rain started to fall, and I thought Miguel captured well how he hunted Florian down, who offered some resistance but in the end had to succumb to Bulk's charge. He told of high pressures during the second stint, 33 psi was mentioned, but had no adverse effect on the handling and that the car felt great. It was a different story on the other side of the garage for David, a real tale of 2 fates. It started oh so well, out-qualifying Cliff and starting P5, but lost a few places at the start, and by lap 3 turn 1 the writing was on the wall after being involved in a collision with De Preta and Rowlands. He also picked up a stop-go 30 penalty, which I believe is for excess speeding in the pit lane, and the misery continued when he had a coming together with me towards the end. Finished P20 for a net loss of 15 places. But listen, it's a home race next, and I'm sure the team will lift him and he'll be back to his best. Who do we have next? Finger Racing, who collected 116 points from the race, their best haul so far, which moves them up to 8th in the team's championship, and what a result for the Gür half of the garage. Florian, taking a deserved 2nd step on the podium, started with a full tank, so perhaps was looking to get go the distance with some fuel saving or a more conservative engine mode, but when the rain came it forced his hand with a pit stop. He confessed he was unprepared for changing conditions and was consciously looking after his tyres through the different phases of the rain. Nonetheless, a really solid drive by Kotz on his return to RRL and his new adventures in ACC. Would feel mean to leave him off my driver of the day shortlist if I'm honest, just 1/10 off taking pole position by the way. As for the Finn half of the garage, well, there was little reaction to discern how his race played out. Qualified 16th and made good progress early on, perhaps mainly due to the lap 3 turn 1 incident which gifted him 3 positions. but then it seems the Preta chipped over him, shall we say, on his charge back through the field, so that set him back half a dozen places perhaps before bringing her home in P18 for, as I said, their best team result to date. The fourth best team on the day, amassing 110 points, and their best haul also was Paradigm Shift. The distinctive livery of Jack and Radek is really starting to be noticed on the track as well as off it, and it really feels the pair are getting to grips nicely with the 296 and extracting the best from it. I'm sensing that from all the Ferrari teams, to be honest, but I guess that's just natural as drivers become more accustomed with their machines over the course of a season. Jack out-qualified his teammate and made a respectable gain of 6 positions to finish the race in P9. Reiterated his fondness of racing in these changing conditions and eagerly awaits the next opportunity. Well, you may get your wish at Spa, Mr. Camaletto. Next we have, if we can find Radek, there he is, P1 at the moment. Radek, well, what a ride from the pole. Qualified down in 21st after, I assume, getting the timing wrong in the session and crossing the start line earlier than he should have done. But 90 minutes later, he was taking the checkered flag in P7 for a gain of 14 places. And is why he is also on my shortlist for driver of the day. Changed to wets after 30 minutes, but complained of being up to 3 psi above optimal pressures for the whole race. Probably not helped by having to guess the wet pressures, as he forgot to program them before the race. A distinct disadvantage of racing in VR that I found. You can't have that scrap of paper to hand with bits of information should you forget. Also, Radek seems to be reaping the rewards from his new Moser Direct Drive wheel setup. Grizzly Racing up next, and rumours are that Mr. Bayer is still in a debrief with his engineers as to what went wrong on Sunday. Such is the dedication of our Season 60 champ. Was baffled as to where his pace had gone, why his tyres had worn so quick, and why he struggled to ever really get his pressures in range. Still, all woes aside, he managed to get on the podium and secure strong points for his title charge, in fact increasing his lead in the Driver Championship. Lude Dennis in the 393 Hurricane made good progress as he gained 7 positions coming from the back of the field. A couple of seconds off the pace in qualifying, but I think that is his preference to start at the back to avoid any early incidents. He said afterwards that the race was fun and enjoys the challenge of being a proficient backmarker and the challenges that come with it whilst also battling those around. Team WRT and another DNS for De Kaiser as he continues with internet issues, which doesn't bode well for the reigning Masters team champion's hopes of retaining the title. But where there's Bram de Preta in your team, there remains hope. Well, actually not the best of races for our reigning Masters champion either. An almost unheard of P12 in qualifying was in stark contrast to his table-topping time on the practice server. But perhaps the ever-evolving track conditions were just too much to keep ahead of and be on the track with the right pressures at the right time. Still, he was able to produce a determined drive to bring it home in P5, that after being turned around by Dorr on lap 3. And from what I understand, stewards are looking at an incident with Tommy Kosonen from the first stint, so we'll have to see what becomes of that. The team will be looking to bounce back strong for sure as they head to the Grand Spa-Francorchamps in 2 weeks' time. Next up we have the Red Bull Roadrunners in the striking Ferrari 296. Let's start with Simon, shall we? Disconnections in the opening 2 races really thwarted the Dutchman's chances of mounting a serious challenge in the Masters. There were rumours of him calling it a day, but I'm pleased that he chose rather to invest in a new PC to cure his issues, and it worked. Only top 10 finishes since, and more of the same was in order here too. Qualified 9th and finished the race in 8th place despite having spent tyres at the end of the race and feeling like a sitting duck to anyone who got close. Held on valiantly though for more good points. Manu, after posting back-to-back top 10s, couldn't catch a break here and retired the car on lap 30. Having posted one of the fastest laps of the race on the dry track, a collision with Arella early doors was probably just one factor that led to the Belgian calling it a day. 77, the purple side of the garage feel they could be doing better. 25th in qualifying and complained of being blocked on his last flying lap attempt. Made steady progress in the first stint, avoiding any trouble, but his race came apart a little in the rain. Said he thought he pitted a lap too late, as his pressures needed slightly adjusting in his pit menu and had to fumble around changing them. Eventually picking up a DT penalty for track limit abuse. One positive was that he nailed his pit stop. The blue side of the garage. Well, I can assure you the air matched the colour of the car, as Arella was not a happy bunny after the race. It began with underfueling in qualifying, which cost him a top 10 start, and then incidents with Hudamakers, Manojevic and De Monk really compounded the misery for the German. So that was P19 for Si and P14 for Ralph. Ralph alluding to the fact that his Hund could have done a better job. Not quite ducks, but I'm sure the penguins would have enjoyed waddling around in the puddles today. But maybe they need to paint sharks on their car to better portray how they cut through the water gracefully like a great white hunting its prey, as these happy feet enjoyed their best team result yet. Let's start with the heroics of SDW, as he glided through the field to a wonderful P10 and must also be a contender for drive of the day, especially considering Sven is an AM Cup driver. In his interviews, he reported being elated with his first top 10 of his career, or certainly his RRL career, and it's nice to see drivers showing real signs of improvement in the community. Frank Kvelds made 6 places, finishing a useful 26 in his fight for the AM Cup. I witnessed a couple of nice overtakes on Dirk Veit and Olivier Cowenbear, and it looked like he enjoyed a sustained battle with Dirk in a battle of the McLarens. And next, the home team of Pannonia Racing, Pannonia being the early Latin name for Hungary, but also in reference to Robert's local track, the Pannonia Ring, where he did lots of marshalling in his teen years with his father, which eventually led to his marshalling team being invited to events at the Red Bull Ring, Hungaroring and wider locations. So fair to say he was keen to do well here, and things were looking yo, which I think translates to good, after securing P3 in quali. Things didn't really happen for him though, losing a couple of places at the lights and reported suffering from high pressures in the wet due to the lack of practice, eventually finishing just outside the top 10 after a coming together with Camaletto in the last corner. Abolowski didn't fare any better either, fell victim to the apex curb at turn 3 on lap 1, which seems to take its fair share of victims, and resulted in quite some shunts behind. A well-damaged car, no doubt, which must have hindered his recovery, which didn't last more than 30 laps before retiring. Pantera Blue are next in the notes, and although they only had one car finish, what a noise at the disco. After taking pole position with a 46 flat, Damien took the race by the scruff of its neck, and I'm not going to mince my words, he blitzed the field. A quite astonishing performance by the Canadian to build a 23-second gap to Florian by the time he pitted on lap 20. I think he must have broke the internet with his extreme pace, and unfortunately we saw little more of DDG as he suffered a cruel disconnection. Nemanja Manojevic qualified well in P10, but his race was soon compromised after picking up 20 seconds damage on lap 3. I believe as a result of the door Roland's Depreter shunt. Carried on courageously though, had a bump with Arella as previously mentioned and brought it home in P12, a result the Croatian was quite satisfied with considering what he called his done tyres. VSP Racing next. Eves had a terrible start to the race, getting caught up in the lap 1 incident, suffering significant damage and forcing him to pit at the end of the lap. Re-emerged right into the leaders and spent most of the time letting them through and further killing his race. Decided enough was enough and cut short his misery by retiring on lap 12. A better result for Alessandro, who qualified 20th and was up to 13th if I remember correctly during the first stint, and was driving well. Eventually succumbed to track limits and picked up a drive-through penalty which he served on lap 30 before bringing the Aston home in P15. Another all-Belgian outfit that will be hoping for a better all-round result at Spa. Next we have R2E and the Mackenberg twins. Not really a race to tell the grandkids about. In fact, their worst team result of the campaign, which cost them the lead of the team's championship. However, I've marked them, or Marvin at least, with A+ for effort after daring to go with a no-stop strategy. And it was close to working too, but there was just a bit too much rain at times in the second half for his tyres to stay in the range to give decent enough performance to really keep the hammer down. A brave call indeed, after qualifying 13th, eventually finishing in P16. Sven, well, he was another one that would fall victim to the damn apex curb at turn 3. I call it that damn apex curb as I myself have come unstuck there in ACC and know how frustrating it is. Maybe his car was heavy if he was on the same strategy as his brother, and his ride heights weren't enough to clear the protruding curb, and that's what spun him. He staged a great recovery though, that is until lap 17 when he span on the exit curb coming into the main straight and ended up in the wall. The next lap he would retire, decide enough is enough and retire his car. WR team's sole representative appears to be Kevin Rowlands after his teammate Patrick Vust hasn't been seen since the opening. Let's just go back a bit. His teammate hasn't been seen since the opening round at Valencia. Qualified in a commendable P7 in the M4, but was the meat in the sandwich in that lap 3 turn 1 incident, which dropped him all the way back to 31st. To see him finish 17th shows him suffered quite the drive to drag himself that far back up the standings. David offered an apology after the race, which Kevin accepted gracefully, but sounded a bit dejected when he added he was getting used to being hit from behind. Let's hope we can find some better fortune in the remaining races, as the German is no doubt a strong contender. W&W Racing Team took 28 points from the weekend. Dirk Veit taking P25 and Nigel Wood finishing 23rd. A poor qualifying session from them both, Nigel saying he just couldn't get a lap in, just couldn't get a lap together, which I think was a common theme throughout pit lane. Wood gained an impressive 10 places in the first stint before pitting on lap 20 for wet tyres, only to find out his crew had in fact fitted more dry tyres. Don't understand really what happened there, but the driver was left furious with his crew. Knuckled down though, and I think he can be relatively satisfied with P23. Dirk got caught up in the lap 1 incident between turn 3 and 4, no doubt picked up some damage, but still managed to take the flag in P25, despite also picking up a DT penalty. He remains well in contention for the Am Cup title though, sitting just 8 points behind the leader. Alpha Shizou is the final team, which I believe is an amalgamation of the two esports stables. I'm not sure which driver belongs to which crib, but I'm sorry to report we are down to just Alpha or just Shizou, as James Mead has left the championship. Hardware expenses and a looming wedding means James doesn't have the resources to find a way back into the series just yet. We wish him well for the big day, still awaiting my invite by the way, but hopefully we'll see him again soon when he's settled into married life. So that leaves Hannah Song as their sole representative, and I must admit I don't know if Hannah is a he or a she. Hannah suggests a female, doesn't it? But By my understanding, Hannah Song is an animated character from Overwatch, and those with a BDI will have noticed the letters DVA on the windscreen, which is probably his or her true identity. Maybe if you're watching Hannah, you can clarify it for us. But I'll stick with she, and hopefully no offence is taken. A respectable 24th in qualifying, but yet again got caught up in a lap 1 incident. The bad luck has done the rounds here at RRL when you think back to Andre Moll and Rude last year, and Hannah is certainly the keeper of it at the moment. She complained of drivers behind her not respecting the yellow flag and feels unmotivated to continue in the series, and I can somewhat understand that. Yellow flags are not so efficient in ACC as they take some seconds to show after an incident, so it's not really a reliable reason as to why drivers aren't slowing. But certainly if you have any visual clue that there's a trouble ahead, you have to be ready to react and not just keep your foot in. But please stick with it, Hannah, you're in a fantastic job and leading the M Cup at the minute. So yeah, P24 for Hannah today. Now the individual drivers that I'll whip through as we're quickly running out of time. Stefan Fielus, you'll notice by his colours, he's part of the Useless Racers crib. Had a steady race, not much reaction that I could find to relate to the rest of you. Qualified 30th and finished 21st for a nice gain of 9 places, and was really our AM Cup winner if we discard Sven, who is ineligible to win the title. Timo de Monk. Never find them when you want to. Another solid midfield drive by the Belgian. Qualified 11th and finished the race in P13, but perhaps that could have been a bit better if it wasn't for a last lap coming together with Arella. Olivier Cowenber was an early casualty, just lasting 11 laps after qualifying in position 26. Sven Eke appeared to have an entertaining race, involved in lots of battles from what I saw close to me. Qualified 28th and with a drive-through penalty along the way, finished P22. And last but not least, Martin Hughes. Practice for the race was limited due to VR issues, but thankfully got them resolved for the race. Was another victim of the lap 1 skirmish. Thought he'd got away with it, but actually the rolling car of Abelovsky got him. Focused on his battle with Rude, but another spin, a drive-through penalty and damage repair resulted in Rude being 30 seconds up the road and out of sight. To be resumed, I have no doubt. Okay, let's wrap it up there. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments, and also let us know who you thought was your driver of the day. But for now, thanks for watching, and Vison Vlatazra.